Heyo, my Planet Coaster friends, Johnny5 Alive here, and we're back with another episode of Let's Build. This is building the Gulpee Factory dual boomerang coasters, and this is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, go check that out. We basically block out the whole building and get that all prepped and ready, and in this episode we're going to be kind of adding some more levels of detail, some color to it, and all that good stuff. So stay tuned, and let's check it out. Alright, as you can see here, I am adding in some color. We're playing around. I did the Gulpee signs and the little Gulpee statue separately in a couple videos earlier today. We're going to be incorporating that stuff, like we just incorporated the signs. And if you guys do download those signs, I made it so the back pieces are different building piece, so you could change the colors to whatever you want. I did incorporate all 3 colors and all 3 signs, so if you want to end up putting it onto your building, all you have to do is separate the blocks and then combine it into your building afterwards if you want to have it all in. And that's what I do at the very final stages. So here I'm doing a lot of like color theory and tinkering, trying to figure out what patterns and designs and colors I want to go with. I'm like, do I like it with the yellow top? Do I like it with the green top? And it's a lot of experimentation. You never really know, and sometimes you got to try it and figure it out, and it can become kind of frustrating. But overall, what I ended up deciding worked best on this is yellow on the bottom, green on the top, or blue on the top, and it's mirrored, right? So this side is all green and the other side is all blue. Blue and yellow and green and yellow. So wherever there's yellow on one side, there's going to be yellow on the other side, and then all I have to do is swap out the colors from green and blue. And what's kind of neat is when you look at it from the sides, it's kind of like a mixture. You're gonna have blue and green on the fronts and backs, and it gives you this nice mirrored effect with different colors, and I really like that. But I also wanted to leave a little bit, I didn't want to add too much color in. A lot of the sci-fi stuff that I've been doing has been very gray and white. I started to incorporate more colors as I started getting better at the game. Planet Gulpee, I had a little bit of stripes of blue and pink on there, and I've added in some Slurpees and some slushies and some different colors. And for the Missy Good Shop, I added in a lot of black and red. So, and even with the Street Fox Coffee, that was white gray with a little bit of red. So now that I'm playing around with these colors a little bit, it's giving me more ideas and more ways to make my variety a little bit better, but still maintain that theme of sci-fi that I'm going for, by keeping the pillars gray, the rooftops gray, the walls white, or having certain areas of white. So I am trying the color here. You can see me testing it, and I end up deciding that it's just too much color. So the way I finally decided that it was going to work was having that big the vat area where they're brewing all the soda and the energy juice. That area is going to be a lot of color, but the actual warehouse, I figured it would be best left a little bit unplain with maybe just a stripe of yellow or little bits of touches of color. So most of the top parts, I ended up keeping them nice and white and gray, and then it's a nice combination. So there's some painted walls in there to give it that Gulpee vibe, that vibrance, the color, make it pop a little bit, but still maintaining that what do you call it, futuristic, utopian sci-fi feel. So I really like the white and gray, nice and clean, the vinyl plastic, and we're just incorporating some little bits of undulation here and there by adding ledges and little rows of shelf, I guess, just little extrusions here and there. I'm trying it, as you can see, I'm trying to line the walls, see if that would look good, and thought maybe a strip of something poking out would be good. And it's all just experimentation, seeing, I don't want everything to be flat and plain, but then sometimes it looks good to be flat and plain, because it is a warehouse. Warehouses are very boxy, but I try to stray away from that boxy feeling as much as possible, and you could do that by, like you can see here, the top of this building has like an undulation. It has a smaller building jutting out the top and poking out, and that's the best way to stay on the grid but stay on one building and get away from the boxy feel of things, and then try and add some curvy roofs on top. And I feel like that's the best way to do it if you want to keep everything compact in one blueprint. But obviously there's the more advanced way of doing it is to take another building and make it separate and slant it and jam it in, and you can get some really good angular shapes in your buildings. I'm not too big of a fan of that style, at least for the sci-fi stuff, because it's very clean, and I like it a little bit boxy in that sense. But if I were to be doing something steampunk or fantasy, I'd probably be using that wedging technique a lot more. So it's always good to test everything you're doing, and here I am testing out the paths. Like I had that rooftop there to keep them cover from the rain or whatever. I guess it doesn't really rain in this game, but in theory there would be rain. Maybe it's something they add in the future, but you know, or I guess just give them shade from the sun. I figured there should be a rooftop. So I planned that out from the beginning, trying to think, okay, there's going to be 2 rows, and I wanted it to be something like that, where you see there where you come up the top row and you're nice and high, and then the second row you're kind of low down. So that's kind of how the queue is set up. But I noticed there, as you saw, I went underneath the coaster, and that pathway couldn't get underneath the coaster. A little bit of a problem there, so I had to go in and tweak the coaster. I had to raise it up. It wouldn't allow me to build it there, and I didn't realize that until after. So now I have to raise up the other coaster. It didn't really affect the track too much. I'm checking it there as it's coming into the station or out of the station, depending on which way the boomerang's going. There's a little bit of a hump, a little bit of a wiggle. It did affect the rating just a little bit. I think the rating went down and the fear went up, just because of that little wiggle. And there's not much I could do about that, because there's not enough pieces in between the inversion and the station. So I'm not able to smooth that out, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I wanted to have it so that the loop was going like through a building, and the guests were also walking underneath it, so that the coaster would be like zipping right over the top of the guests' heads, almost touching them. So I wanted this nice pathway tight to the building all the way around. So it was a necessary change, raising up that inversion, and it ended up working out in the end. So here I'm deciding to add in my planters, because you can see I'm trying to came up with this style of planters that I do for sci-fi. I build the planters like that with little quarter walls, and I put little ledges or caps, pillars on the edges, and then I fill it up with hedges, and then I'll put like round little hedge plants on top, and I'll take a basic shape to make a ring around the circular bush, and that'll end up giving you this Saturn style planet, almost like a gas planet, and you can color that planet however you like. So I really like that style that I go for, and I've been consistent with it. On the Missy Goods, what I ended up doing was, instead of using the basic shapes, I used like cookies or something, so it made it look a little bit more yummy. But it is something that I'm doing because there's no real sci-fi trees in this game, so that's kind of like my take on it, is like really sci-fi clean planters, then having some sort of like planetary decoration to it to make it look kind of like a solar system, and that gives it that sci-fi feel. So it's kind of a cute little gimmick that I use on my my buildings. But the problem is there's so many planters going around this building. It was a little bit concerning, because I knew I was going to have to use a lot of hedges, and that's going to really eat into my part count, and my part count was getting pretty high at this point. I mean, now with the 4K blueprint we could do a lot more, but you'd be surprised at how fast these pieces are getting chewed up. And at the end of the day, if you look at the overall design, it doesn't seem like I used 4K pieces, but some of it's being chewed up because I made those inside rooms, the green room and the blue room, so they're double walls, they're double thick. These little Gulpees were 200-300 pieces each or something, so they ate up a lot of pieces. The Gulpee signs are eating up a lot of pieces as well. Those are probably a few hundred, so they all add up. So with one side and one statue on each side, it was probably well over 1,200 pieces, and then the building itself was about 2,000, so it left me with about 800, I think, to really detail the outside of the building, and that's really not a lot. So I was worried that the hedges are going to be up to 1,000 pieces, and I knew it was going to be a problem, but I thought, okay, worst comes to worst, I'll do the plants last, and if I have to skip on the hedges, I will, and I'll just put like birch trees in and figure something out from there. but I do like the planters still. So I decided I would focus on what's needed for the building first and prioritize that. Always want to try and prioritize your decorations, and as soon as you get to the things that are least important, you can decide then when you're scrimping on parts. So going, do I really need this? What can I do instead? So here, one of the things I really wanted was I wanted a catwalk with an elevator so that the employees could actually go up there, because I don't know how to make juice or soda, but I'm sure like there's a machine that regulates the carbonation values and the pressure values of different sugars being pumped in and different ingredients, the stirring and all that, the pressure. There's probably a computer or something that regulates and controls all that. So I decided it would be on top of the building there. And I decided it would be a catwalk that takes you over there. So that's going to need an elevator. So as you see, I'm building an elevator there. So the employees can take an elevator up. They can go up there. They can work on the machine and make sure everything is up to standard. And then they can, if somebody so happens to fall in the tank or something, a bird falls in there, they have a platform to go up there so that they can pull it out or do what they need to do or turn the machine off. So there it is. I wanted to make it a little bit believable. That's something I do with all of my buildings. I try to tell a story. Like if I worked here, how would I get in and out? I try to make it believable as much as possible. And this is one of the things that really helps me do that for this particular build. So I really like the catwalk idea, and it just brought a little bit more character to it, and it added some more interesting shape to the building. Seeing the catwalk going across like that, it just made it look a little bit more interesting. So I ended up deciding to do that for the next 2 vats. I make sure I extended it over because I was really liking the way it turned out, and so they can work on all 4 of them now. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'm just trying to decorate it a little bit, make it a little bit less plain. Got some like release valves there. So I initially thought it'd be cool to have some steam coming out of those, but I was really low on part count, and that was low on the priority list. And we have so much water that we end up making that splashes in and out that it ends up really good at the end, and it doesn't really need all these extra steamy things and stuff like that. But I would say at the end result with 4K pieces, I could have easily taken this to 5-6K just with all the hedge plants I wanted to make, all the little special effects. I really wanted to go over top with the lighting. One thing you'll see me doing on all my sci-fi buildings is I'll take those little square lights and I'll put them on the edges of all my pillars. So I'll put them at the top, the bottom, sometimes even in the middle, and I'll literally like slide them over and hand place them on every single corner of all the pillars. You'll see it on Planet Gulpee, and what it does is it just creates, like at nighttime you see all these little lights lighting up, and it really gives it that sci-fi feel. Now I would have, because this thing has so many pillars and it's such a big building, I would have had to place at least a couple hundred across the whole building. But it would have really given it that sparkliness at nighttime that I was looking for. It would have made it feel really sci-fi. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that because we just didn't have a couple hundred extra pieces to work with, and those are really final decorations. But I just couldn't squeeze it in there. I guess I could have done it instead of the plants, but the plants gives it the immediate vibe. Like you could see the planters. The planters alone changed the shape of the building. The plants make it a little bit more inviting, and it just looks more maintained and clean. Whereas the little lights, they're just tiny details that add extra noise and extra sci-fi characteristics. While they are nice, they are definitely worth sacrificing. And in some cases, the cleaner, plainer building for the warehouse, it ended up working and I guess making sense. It doesn't need to be the brightest building in the park. So I'm just trying to make sure I get all my sci-fi bases covered here. So one thing I do is put all the air conditioning units on the top, make sure it looks like the building is kept cool. So we have that over on the warehouse, and over here I decided, these Gulpee vats they're going to need flavor. So on top of the building, there's these, you know, green flavoring machines that are pumping sugar and artificial flavoring into the vats below them. And these are kind of like the restock flavoring machines. So there's all these vats full of flavoring and juice, and I'd make one green and one blue, and it adds that element of, I guess, storytelling again. Like, this is where all the flavors coming from, is these thingies. So I thought that was kind of fun. It was something that was needed on there, and I did it on Planet Gulpee as well. It was their Slurpee flavoring. So these are just the final touches to like give it that sci-fi theme, because if I'm calling it sci-fi, I should use the sci-fi decorations. So I use the panels, I use the pipes, all the little doodads and vents and stuff like that. And that'll make it pop and feel like it matches my sci-fi collection a little bit better. Just having vinyl plastic doesn't really work as sci-fi, because the vinyl plastic is also used in the Planet Coaster theme, although they do a combination of wood, modern wood as well. This just is a stripped down version of that. So it's always good to incorporate that little sci-fi trinkets, and I'm pretty happy with it. But the lights, I am a little bit bummed that I wasn't able to squeeze them in. Like I said, I probably could have easily found another 1,000 pieces worth of decorations to do on this. But at the end, it looks good without all that extra stuff I wanted to add, because it's not, sometimes less is more, and the cleanness of it all, I do like something about it being really clean. So it's not like over jazzed up. So here I'm coloring the coasters, trying to get them looking just right. I like one track being green and one being blue. Like I said in episode 1, I was talking about my RTC days. I played some Let's Plays on the channel with my cousin, and I made one little boomerang coaster that was dual synchronized, one green and one blue. So this is looking just like it now that I've colored the tracks, and I felt like it needed a sign on each side, one saying soda, one saying energy, because one is the Gulpee energy coaster and the other is the soda, the Gulpee Soda coaster. And so the entrance should have a big sign welcoming you to the coaster, and it's just called Soda. The other one's called Energy, and I've got the little Gulpee in front, so it'd be like a Gulpee Soda and a Gulpee Energy. So it worked perfectly. It's a pretty self-explanatory, and I think that really just added another level of character to it, and it's perfect. So the basic shapes are a little bit different. I had a hard time coloring them. You can see me fiddling with it here. They don't, even if you take the exact color that you had on the wall for the vinyl plastic, it doesn't translate to the basic shapes quite properly. It's a little bit funky. Corner caps. Oh boy. Corner caps. So these are pretty painful to do. I really wish the corner caps snapped to the grid. They are quite a doozy, guys. And I don't know why they didn't make corner caps snapping to the grid. In the next episode, we're going to get all of the rest of the coaster done, guys. And this is pretty much the end of the footage for part 2. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe for more daily Planet Coaster videos. And let me know what you guys thought of this down in the comments below. All right, everybody. I hope to see you guys in part 3. And thank you guys so much for watching. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye now.